hands? That's like a baby's toy.
I'm totally Batman.
Oh, man.
Shh. Communing with the earth spirits.
Welcome to California, bud.
Cowabunga.
And after that, I just sort of space out for about an hour.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Secondary Heroes podcast. This week, we're talking about Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. This is your host, Trevor. Joining me as usual is...
Hey guys, it's Prague. And it's just us this week. No Alex,
Yep.
unfortunately.
Alex is on a string of having other stuff come up, and that's okay. We can just talk about the movie. He'll be back soon.
Yeah. Life happens. We love you, Alex. You'll be back.
In the meantime, we have the latest Marvel movie hitting theaters, and in case anyone is wondering, is there oversaturation with Marvel, just keep in mind that since the pandemic started, the top 3 highest grossing movies are Spider-Man: No Way Home, Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness, and now Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. So there's definitely oversaturation of Marvel. But people love watching it.
But it keeps printing money, so might as well keep doing it. Disney knows what's up.
Yep.
Oversaturated, but apparently you're not sick of it yet, I guess, as a society.
People love seeing it.
So, formula works. So this is the end of the current phase that we're in, phase 4. So this kind of ties up everything, this film.
Yeah, that's exactly what it does. It ties up everything. Now we know where we're going with phase 5 and everything.
Well, we'll get into that when we talk about the film here. But if you are new here to us at the Secondary Heroes, what we do is we will go ahead and give our spoiler-free take at the top of the show here, so that if you haven't seen the film, you just want our opinion of it, you can hear that and then go see the film and come back. Because after that, we will spoil it. So fair warning, later on, we will spoil it. But first, we will give you our thoughts on the film.
Because this isn't just like putting on something on a streaming service. This is, I'm going to go out of my day. I'm going to get tickets. Tickets aren't cheap. And I'm going to go sit there in the movie theater for 2 hours with a bunch of annoying people. It's an investment. Like, I'm going to do this rather than just sitting at home on the couch. Because there's nothing as easy as just, I'll try this.
Sure. Yeah, nowadays it's a lot of that. It's like, well, or I could try it later or whatever, the case may be, or I can put it on the background. Whereas if you're in a theater, like, you're there, like, you're stuck. You don't get to, like, turn away and do something else and go on your computer or something. So you're fully invested. You are surrounded by people, and this is 2 hours and 40 minutes of movie to do that with. So it takes up a big part of your day. Yeah, it takes a part of your day out. But I think before we kind of get into anything, I do want to clarify. I see a lot of people, and this is not just with this film, it's with a lot of films lately, probably within the last 5 years or so, where people say movies are just too long nowadays. And I don't think that's quite the right approach. I think some films are long and some films can be too long. Just because a film is long doesn't mean it's too long. You can have a film be an hour, you can have a film be 2.5 hours, you can have a film be 5.5 hours. But at some point, too long just means that you have maybe too much filler or too much stuff that isn't helping the narrative. It's not very exciting, it's kind of pointless, whatever. So I think going into this, there was a lot of that, like, well, I liked it or didn't like it, but, it's too long. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that not every movie that is long, meaning whatever that means to you, I think to most people is probably more than 90 minutes. Doesn't necessarily mean that's a bad thing. So, I mean, most of my favorite films are very long movies. Some are 3 to 5 hours. So,
I mean, you could get into a whole societal discussion on attention span, and if the devices we hold with us have changed our attention span.
TikToks, for example.
But that's not our discussion. Today is just Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. And so, spoiler free, I'll go first because I've been thinking about it since, like, as soon as the movie ended. I just sat there in the theater and let it wash over and, like, what am I feeling? And I think that this movie, it feels a lot. Like, there's some really like just impactful scenes in this film, and I think it might be problematic that the biggest thing that happens is in the open because it's something that happened out of their controls. It's not anything dependent on the movie. Chadwick Boseman passing impacts everything, and they cover that at the start, and it's extremely heartfelt because they kind of correlate it to real life scenarios, and that got me right at the start. I think the opening logo of the moment of silence with just clips of Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther, that got me emotional, and I feel like that's the strongest emotional impact of the film, and it happens at the start. So just based on that, like, there's nothing, you can make a great film, but there's a letdown that follows that, and I feel like the film is a really interesting dichotomy where there's absolutely amazing sequences, but there's absolutely terrible sequences too. It just, there's some stuff, and I think that gets into the too long idea that you could cut this movie down. There's scenes that were not required to tell this story, and it's disappointing because it's a good story. I mean, it's well worth seeing. I'm having it on the level of the first Black Panther is an amazing film, and this one had really tough things to live up to, and it might be impossible to live up to those heights because you lose your main character and you have to deal with that storyline. And they did a good job. I just don't think it was great. I think there was too many parts where I lost interest or like kind of rolled my eyes, and I think it's because, again, you kind of have that letdown after what they display in the first few minutes of the film.
Yeah. Okay. Well said. For me, I think that I went into this film with almost no expectations because even for someone who has written scripts, I couldn't figure out how they were going to do this. Like, I didn't know how they're going to write Chadwick Boseman's T'Challa out. That was the first thing. And then how do you include this, antagonist with Namor into the whole picture and do that? And then also, how do you decide this new Black Panther, which is going to be decisive amongst the audience, and then wrap up phase 4 or whatever they're going to do. And there was so much that I think when I went into this, I just didn't know what to expect. And I'm like, you know what? I want to see a good movie. I know that Ryan Coogler is a great director. I really liked Black Panther. Like you said, it was a great movie. But I also was kind of like nervous because T'Challa was like really like the beating heart of the Avengers. Like, he was so, I don't know if he was very poignant in all of his scenes. He was very well acted. He was a presence, you felt him, and we also felt his loss, and you feel his loss in this film. Like you said, the opening is probably the strongest part of the movie. I do think there are a few other beats throughout the film. There are almost equally as strong. They're well done, but they are kind of spread out throughout this film that I felt like, I don't know if they should have either taken it in 2 parts and done maybe, Chadwick's passing, taking the passing of the Black Panther as one movie or one something. Maybe it was a TV show or something, and separate that from the whole Namor introduction storyline, new Black Panther. Instead, they combined it into one movie, and because of that, it did, to me, feel too long. And to your point, there are scenes, because Ryan Coogler is a great director, that are just really well done. Like, it's so well filmed. Some of the better scenes in any MCU film, but then there's also a whole bunch of these random scenes that are just not good at all. And I don't know where that comes from. But the same thing happened with the first Black Panther film. You had some of those battle scenes outside that looked just like, the first prequel film from Star Wars that had that same kind of weird, green screening effect that doesn't work for me. And then little issues here and there. But there's a lot. They threw a lot into this movie. But I will say, by the end of the film and after that mid-credit scene that everyone's talking about, so don't spoil yourself if you haven't seen the film yet. I actually really enjoyed. Like, I don't think I ever got to a point in the movie where I was like, oh God, I hope this ends soon. I don't like this. I never felt that. Like, even during some of the scenes I didn't care for, I was like, I was still enjoying myself through the entire 2 hours and 41 minutes. Not once did I feel like I had to go up to the bathroom or anything. And I don't think anyone in the theater did. Like, everyone sat through the whole thing. And I do think, at least the showing that I went to, the audience absolutely enjoyed it. Like, from beginning to end. Like, the moments that you should have been quiet were dead quiet. Like, not even the kids were making a noise. And then the moments that deserved applause or laughter, And there's plenty of jokes that went over my head for cultural reasons that everyone else was eating up, and that was great to see. And it was fun to go back to the theaters for that kind of experience. Because I don't go to the theaters as often as I used to. I used to go every weekend, multiple, movies all the time. And since the pandemic, I just haven't been. So it was, I think part of it too is going back and seeing a movie on IMAX. And a lot of these scenes were shot in IMAX, and it was those scenes just were amazing. So overall, I said this was a very good film. Maybe not the best Marvel film, but definitely one of the better ones, and definitely worth checking out. I think they did a great. I think they honored Chadwick Boseman really well in this. I think so. Just a little bit too long.
Yeah, to your point about how they could have possibly, like, they had too much going on. Like, it felt like you could have almost two movies. Like, there was a distinct point in this where you could split the film into two.
Oh yeah, you can almost feel it.
Yeah, it's weird that it just kept going, and they're just you have no idea with all the decision making that goes behind this, and just what actual original plan was. Because also you have to consider this movie was written and then had to be rewritten.
Right, had to be rewritten. I'm sure they had a full plot, and they had to add an additional plot on top of it.
Yeah.
So, and they couldn't rush it either, right? They had to move on to other projects. So I'm sure Kevin Feige was like, "Well, figure out a way to marry the two together, and we'll make it a big film, and people will see it anyways." And we did. So,
yeah,
one of the biggest, I think, the biggest opening ever for November for a film.
So. Yep. So if you are new, again, that's our spoiler free. And now we're going to spoil the film. So if you haven't seen it yet, or you don't care about spoilers, you can choose. This is your fork in the pathway to choose what you want to do next. If you're going to continue on, be sure to check us out on social media. We're at Secondary Heroes on all forms of different platforms. You can listen to us on all the different podcast networks. And Alex usually does this. He does a good job at it. I'm sure you heard it by now. If not, at Secondary Heroes will lead you to all the right places. So now, spoiler time. This is always tough of where your jumping off point. Mm-hmm. I feel like for me, you always kind of have to compare the first one to the second one when you have a sequel. That's inevitable. And I feel like the first film, the biggest drawback, I think, is the climactic final act scene where they're fighting in the caves. It doesn't look very good. It doesn't have that quality. It loses kind of the rest of the film and the meaning of the film. And I feel like the final climactic fight in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever has the same kind of problems.
The same, yeah. Which is disappointing. You wonder if they got to the end of the film and I don't know if budget ran out or the effects teams had to leave for other projects by the end of the filming. Could be the case, but you felt it. When you compare and contrast the early parts of this film, where the CGI is fantastic and the green screening is great and the shots are really well done. You look at the last part and everything just kind of feels washed out and rushed. Yeah, you kind of get that feeling that they're kind of tired or maybe, broke apart. It is what it is. It's a big film. So
it's the jarring nature of it.
Yeah.
Either way, if it's not up to par, the whole film, it kind of washes over you. It's when you're watching a film, it feels like the film could end at this point, and then there's this marked difference through the end of it. And this is supposed to be, when you build to a climax and the climax is let down, that's the last impression you get of the film.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I felt like it was a bit... I feel like the middle, I guess, was probably where it kind of climaxed, and then it kind of, dissipated.
Yeah.
To say there's a big moment that happens, kind of a little more than halfway through. We can spoil it now. Just kidding. But yeah, the big death scene of the Queen. It's kind of like that was a big moment, and then Namor just leaves. The confrontation.
We get to see Namor be introduced though as an actual super powerful entity. He is completely dominant in this sequence. He kills the Queen, and now Shuri's death of her brother wasn't enough. Had to kill her mother too.
Yeah, it was a lot for one film. I was like, wow, this is like watching a Never-Ending Story as a kid. I'm like, oh my god, everyone just keeps dying. Oh my god, it's a lot of trauma in this film, so to speak. I will say that shout out to Angela Bassett. I think that she delivered one hell of a performance. She's commanding for sure as Queen. That was great.
Yeah.
So I was kind of bummed that they had to kill her off halfway through. But it almost didn't feel to me as sad. And I think it's because we already had Chadwick Boseman, and that was the real life death, and you follow it up with a fake
Fictional
death.
death.
So to
I
speak.
mean,
Fictional
Angela
death.
Bassett's still alive.
Yeah, she's still alive. It wasn't as impactful to me. I didn't feel it. Maybe that was just me, but I kind of felt nothing during that scene, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I felt the meaning of it and what it entails. I just didn't feel particular sorrow or anything.
Yeah, it was weird. I don't know if it was necessary, to be honest, but I guess they had to make him villainous somehow because they were really making him empathetic as a character, Namor, throughout the film. Right? They're kind of like, well, I can see why I would sympathize with this guy, but he's kind of a little morally unsound here and there, and then boom, murders the queen. Like, oh, okay, I guess he's bad. A little jarring, a little much. For me. So yeah. Anyways, that was kind of my one takeaway because I really did like the character and the actor who played Namor. I really did enjoy that. So I just thought that some of the character beats they gave him in this were weird. There was this one, and there was the one at the end of the movie that was just off.
Yeah, but just even his build-up, there's these sequences in the film. There's a few where it's kind of a head scratcher that would this character do that, or would this play out that way? And I feel like him telling Shuri after he kind of kidnaps her that be my ally or I'm gonna kill somebody. I mean, that's not how you create allies. It was a weird, I understand his motives. His core motives made sense, but the way he went about it made no sense at all. There's no way he's going to get Wakanda on his side by threatening them or else. Be on my side or else. Sure. It's just a weird way to go about things. And he felt a lot like I don't know if it was purposeful, but there was parallels to Killmonger, where he had a very particular view of the world, and he went and operated with that view, and it's a different view, but he still operated in a very similar fashion.
Sure. Yeah, I feel that way too, and I think that was, obviously probably purposeful, because that's who she meets. When she becomes the Black Panther, she meets him, and kind of, I guess they wanted us to show us, the audience, that she is seeing herself in him. And not wanting to become that and go down that path and burn the world, as she said that she wanted to do in the beginning. But I don't know, it didn't quite work for me, that aspect, which is a shame because I do, as I said, I like the introduction of the character. Glad he's in the MCU now, finally, after wanting him to be in it for a long time. So those are my big nitpicks, I think. I know I kind of started off with nitpicking, but
well, that's something we do, but for me, the biggest nitpick is the final battle, just because it was so anticlimactic. Usually in a film, it's really just the dichotomy that Shuri is becoming the Black Panther, where she's kind of the tech person. She's the one who's going to come up these inventions. She's going to be the sidekick type of role. They established that as the first film, and they never intended her to take the mantle of Black Panther. When they're creating Black Panther, she's really good in that side role. But then you have her come up this brilliant plan. We're going to get Namor away from water. That will weaken him, and we'll be able to defeat him. I'm going to adjust the DNA strands that we got from this, and we're going to recreate the special plant so I can become Black Panther. And she had this beat-for-beat plan. And it kind of played out exactly as she planned. And I feel like in a superhero film, we shouldn't in the lab say, this is how things are going to go, and then watch them play out as we just said in the lab. Because it should be like the biggest difference. I don't know, I swear I've seen it in one of the MCU movies where it's what you do when things don't go to plan. That's what makes you a superhero. And she didn't get that herself, just because of the way they framed the fight.
And I also feel like Namor didn't quite, he wasn't threatening enough in that situation too. until the very end, obviously. But yeah, I feel you there on that. On that
That's
aspect
just
of it.
it's a nitpick because it's kind of like she's working with Riri about all the different. Just she came up with everything. Like you could say, well, she wanted to get further into the desert, not be on the coastline, and it's still kind of the reason she defeated him is exactly what she planned to do. Like imagine if Tony figured out the exact plan to defeat Thanos and went about it and did it, and you watched it and you're like, cool. It wouldn't have the same impact as failing and have to come up with alternatives on the fly.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. Yeah, I felt like the whole third act just kind of was for me. That's just the way it
Also,
was.
if you're fighting a water culture, don't take a big boat and fight them on the ocean.
No, don't do that.
They're threatening you. Bring it.
Pretty much. All right. Yeah, that was a bit odd too. I don't know. Yeah, the third act was weird. I wonder, they're just scrambling to kind of create something there. The other thing I did know that was kind of surprising to me was that there wasn't a big reaction when Shuri became the Black Panther and kind of jumped in, to the scene. For whatever reason, that scene fell flat in my showing. Not a single person did a thing. I was like, I was expecting something from the audience.
Because, Marvel's really good at revealing people in their suits. It's one of their favorite things to do.
Yeah,
Namor's introduction was pretty good too.
Yeah, well, that was great. I mean, the whole thing of just seeing him silhouetted in the dark like that, hovering, was fantastic. It was creepy. I was like, yeah, that's how you introduce a guy. And then you get Shuri just falling down, and it just didn't have an impact, which is weird. And I just wonder if some people weren't as on board with her being the new Black Panther, because I know a lot of people wanted Nakia maybe to be the new Black Panther. If they could have had the choice, or recast T'Challa was trending on Twitter and everything but Shuri, apparently.
I feel like just as an actor, I think Letitia Wright's a good actor, but I don't know if she has the commanding screen presence of a main character. Like, it's not any insult to her. There's plenty of actors who don't have that taking over the entire just stage presence type of thing. And I just don't think she captures, when she's on screen, I don't feel like she draws everyone's attention like Chadwick Boseman would do. And I mean, that's a tough comparison, but mainly the people that Marvel has cast as their main characters do a really good job of commanding screen presence. And I don't feel like she feels like she is a side character, an excellent side character. And I think that's why maybe people aren't like, yay.
Yeah, it could be that. I mean, she wasn't cast to be the main character, right?
I know, that's what's interesting.
The side character. So I think, I mean, not to discredit her either. I think she did great. I mean, she had quite the range in the film. She
did an awesome job. I just
wisecracking and sad and everything, and angry. She did all those well. But I agree, she didn't have the presence, that commanding lead presence.
Like, there's amazing character actors who offer some of the best performances in the history of cinema and TV, but they're not leads.
Sure, exactly. So maybe a week. It was something that I had noticed because my audience was really into the film. Like, they were rooting for just about everything, but that moment in particular fell flat, and I took note of it. Took a mental note. Wow, that was kind of surprising.
I mean, also to that point of Nakia, though, Lupita Nyong'o does command the screen. When she's
the whole time.
Film,
like the second she turns around on screen, the entire audience was like, "Yeah." That was a reaction, and all she did was turn around. I mean, there's a difference there.
Yeah.
No offense to Tisha, but yeah, she has a commanding presence on screen, and great outfits in this film too.
As a surprise type of thing, as the final battle was going on, I thought they were going to kill each other. The way it was developing, and I was like, are they actually gonna kill her, Shuri, right now? Like, she literally gets impaled on a rock, and I'm like, wow, they did it. They introduced her just to kill her.
I thought so too. I 100% was convinced that this was just like a ruse. Like, she's your temporary Black Panther until we find the new one, and here you go. Some people wanted Shuri, so we'll give her for the film, kill her off, and figure out who the next one is. But no, she survived that.
I don't know how she survived that either. She got stabbed in the middle and then lifted up. And I liked how her suit closes. So her suit's great condition, but the suit doesn't have healing powers. She's literally, her entire midsection got stabbed through. Like, at least when Tony gets stabbed by Thanos, he gets that little spray that he sprays on himself to seal the wounds. She didn't do anything like that.
I mean, they do have the beads. Maybe she, has the bead technology embedded in the suit. I don't know. Deus Ex Machina stuff there.
Yeah.
Um, so whatever.
I mean, it's the same
Anyways.
thing that when Namor got burnt by the jet engines, I thought he was just going to die on the beach. I didn't think
Well,
he
he
was
was on
going to live
fire,
through
right?
that. Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah.
I feel like they could have stood for something and they bailed out at the last minute. It could have been like, it would have been very divisive. It would have got a lot of people talking, oh, I can't believe this did that. But instead they played it safe. And I don't know if playing it safe gets a lot of people talking about it.
True. Yeah, it's true. Like, what could have meant to Namor if he had actually killed her, and in that moment she had sensed something to like change his mind and realize that he made a mistake, or was like, I don't know what I'm doing, something. Yeah, that could have said something in that moment. I agree. I don't know what that is, but yeah,
I
think
don't either.
something-
I'm not paid to do these things. I just know that playing it safe, it just wasn't particularly memorable. Like, we just saw this movie. It just came out, but in a few years, I'm not going to remember the big fight scene between Shuri's Black
yeah.
Panther and Namor. It doesn't really stand out.
Correct. Well, let's move on to some other stuff that we actually did like about this film then.
I loved I don't know, it's called the actual place that Namor's from. It's called Tikal, and I don't know what it's
I
called.
can't pronounce it. Yes, but I know you're talking about the undersea village.
Yeah,
kingdom.
the Atlantis essentially equivalent.
Yes.
It was amazingly designed. I thought the underwater, like, it's really interesting what James Cameron's doing with Avatar 2, where he's like, I'm doing this underwater because I know CGI sucks underwater, and he's doing an amazing job. Just the trailers from Avatar, the movie's going to be the stupidest storyline, just like the first Avatar, but it's going to look amazing.
It's going to look great. Yeah.
And this movie, I thought, did good with the whole underwater village and creation and everything. It's not on the Avatar level of stuff, but I thought they did a really good job. A lot of attention to detail of designing this entire city underwater.
Yeah, I agree. I like, because I read up beforehand that they did film this underwater. So all those scenes were mostly underwater. The actors were trained to hold their breath for long periods of time, and you can tell by the way they were moving. It didn't feel fake. It felt like they were actually underwater. It was really nice. I think the costume and all the people that designed the sets did a really good job of like really showing us, the viewer of the audience, like, how do these people actually exist above and below water? Like, what kind of masks are they wearing? How those masks work? And showing us that, showing us, like, how are they tethered to to the ocean, and how do they live in a society that is all floating? Like, how do they maneuver around this place? And I think they did that really well, and that's all comes down to design. So it was really well designed. I just have never been a big fan of underwater scenes in film. They don't work for me. They work better in video games, I've always noticed. It's the way it is. So, but this one was definitely one of the better ones I've seen underwater. Definitely better than Aquaman, unfortunately.
Just the world building of it too, to act like there's a whole entity that people didn't know existed, and it's a big thriving civilization. I thought that was really good. I liked that. I felt we got more kind of Wakanda outside of the big palace, and like we got to see
we got to see a lot more of
Wakanda.
it.
Yeah,
it was neat. You got to see like little subway cars and stuff, and buses and trains going through the city, and city folk kind of walking around and shopping. Yeah, it was nice. I really like that.
Yeah,
really, really nice. Yeah, just the costumes, man. I can't tell you, like, the costumes during all the funeral processions and stuff. And
oh man, the funeral processions,
council
especially
members,
the first one.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
fantastic work there. So that's why I think when I went into this, I went, I don't know, the plot's going to have to be weird because this is a weird thing to have to deal with for Marvel. So I was like, you know what, just show me something nice. And a great music. The score was fantastic. All the new music they made for Namor and his people were fantastic. I really enjoyed it. It was a whole different kind of sound to the now iconic Wakanda sounds that we're used to. So shout out to those composers as well. I think they really did a good job of kind of, I think, researching Aztec culture and using the instruments they may have used back then and incorporating that into the soundtrack. So really helped bring that city to life.
Yeah.
So
Ryan Coogler just does an excellent job of taking that extra level and really cultural significance
I would almost
and impact.
like world. He does a good job of world building, I think.
Mhm.
Like he's done more with just one film with the first Black Panther film than like most of these other directors have done with multiple films. So that shout out to him for doing that. It's a tough job to do, and he did it really really well. So yeah, I really enjoyed that aspect
Yeah.
of this film for sure.
I would say other highlights: Okoye and Shuri have a really good dynamic, and
Yeah, they really
Okoye,
did.
she
Yeah.
went through a lot this one because she's kind of an obvious person to take on more responsibility. Because we
Hmm.
saw her at the end or in Infinity War, and we get to hear about the shockwave under the ocean, and
Yeah.
people are thinking, oh, that's going to be in the direction of Namor, and she has a bigger role in the Avengers, and for her to actually get demoted in Wakanda, it was a different
Yeah.
arc for her character.
It really was. It was kind of crushing too, um, to have her, yeah, but kind of be ousted by the queen, and then of course the queen then dies right after, and she still saves the city regardless of being demoted, and yeah, it was really kind of cool to see her. I mean, Denai Guerrera is one of my favorite actresses. She's fantastic, so and one of my favorite characters, in these films. So it was really great to see her role elevated in this.
Yep.
So. And yeah, shout out to everybody else from the Dharma Lodge. I think they were really great this time. They all had their own distinct personalities and weapons and stuff, and it was really cool to see that. So a lot of fun with them.
Yeah. I feel like the other big part of this story, though, is they did like a prequel to Ironheart, and I don't know if
Mhm.
she has enough name recognition to take such a significant part of the film.
Okay.
Like, her future is really bright just as a potential character with the way she fits in the greater MCU, but I don't know if this movie, with all they had to balance and deal with, was the
Yeah.
right time to introduce her.
Yeah, it's weird. Like I really enjoyed her as a character in this film, and you can tell the audience like ate her up.
Mhm.
Like they loved her. Like people were like, oh my god, we love her. I love her. I was hearing that throughout the movie, but I do feel the same way as you. And I felt like this might have not have been the best film for her to be kind of lost in the mix in, because it also felt like her suit was kind of almost childish in a way. Like it almost had that feel of like a kid wearing like a Cars outfit for Halloween in a way. I don't know why. It felt like a cheaper version of the Iron Man suit. I'm like, this would have been more fun in like a Disney Plus series, to have her introduced with one of those, characters, as someone that was trying to help out one of them, which is unfortunate. Because yeah, I do like the character. I really like the actress who plays her, but she got lost in the sauce here. She was kind of like this outlier that shows up and gets bounced around, and I don't know.
Also, she's such a standout in the entire story. Is kind of, she's the catalyst where she creates
Right.
at least the
Which
plans
is
for the
weird.
machine that can find
Yeah.
vibranium, and then Namor's like, well, I'm going to kill her, and Shuri's like, no, I'm going to protect her, you can come to Wakanda, and then now she's free to go back to the US at the end. Isn't
Yep.
everybody going to want her plans? Isn't she still a threat even if Namor's not going to kill her? Isn't everyone else going to kill her? Or
Who
at least want to
knows?
use her plans and brilliance. They just kind of like, oh yeah, you're good. Here's your car back, and like that whole thing that where you were threatened to die, that's out the window. It's gone now. We're good.
Yeah, he's not gonna bother you. Don't worry about that or the government or anybody. You're fine.
Yeah, everybody
Yeah, I don't
doesn't
know.
care now because we all know what happened on that beach.
Yeah, I don't know. Not too sure how they're gonna tie up that one. That was kind of weird
Yeah.
to me too. So, yeah, but so far I did like her though. So
Yeah.
shout out to her and the actress and that. But yeah, hopefully, in her, I think she's getting a movie, not a series, I believe.
Really?
Yeah, I think she's getting a move. I could be wrong. Maybe it's a series.
don't know.
I don't know what it is, but she's getting her own show or something.
Mhm.
Next year or the year after. So hopefully we get to see more of her on her own, doing her stuff, building cool machines and driving that cool car. So yeah, let me see. What else do I remember that I liked? So there's the big M word that showed up again in this film, where Namor talks about him being a mutant. So now our second mutant in the MCU,
Or
finally.
third.
Well, I mean, I don't know who we're going to count as a third if you want to count, what, Charles Xavier in an
Yeah.
alternate dimension.
He's in
but
an
that's not
alternate dimension,
really-
but he's in the
Yeah.
MCU.
Yeah.
Like they played
like
the
an
classic
asterisk. It's like,
X-Men song with him,
I
and
know,
they played
I'm
it with
just
Miss
saying.
Marvel. So Namor should have had it played in the background. Just to
Yeah, they
keep
should
that
have, right?
consistency
They'd be like,
going.
why? Wait, what? Why are they playing the Iceman theme song right now? So it's really interesting to see how they're going to actually explain all this in the end, you know, because right now it's just, I found a mutation. I'm a mutant. Like, what? Who told you this?
It's
Like,
a
there was
different
nothing.
idea of being a mutant too, because like mutants are based on having the X gene that usually activates in puberty. Some activate at birth, but it's usually at puberty. But it's also the mutants we know have all had a supernatural element to it, because his mutation, he explains away as his mom had this vibranium infused plant. It's not that his genes were specifically different. They're saying while he's in the womb, he got some boost, and Miss Marvel got the same type of idea where she has these special bracelets and boost type. So
Yes.
the MCU is dealing with mutants completely different than the comics, and I don't know when they're going to explain this is how we do it, or those were explanations for those times and now we have the official explanation.
Yeah, the only other thing that I've heard recently, and I don't know how this is going to connect, but that maybe that in a past multiversal war, there's some remnants that were spilled over into our timeline that we know it, the new, new 316 time, 616 MCU time, and maybe one of those is that X gene, and they don't know to call it the X gene, so it's magic. It's maybe the flower. It's now in vibranium. Now it's in the bangles or whatever. So maybe it was remnants from the X-Men from this other multiversal war. They all died off in that dimension, spilled over into ours. I've heard that as a possible theory that could work. I don't know how they're doing it, but it's kind of weird how they're just randomly introducing it. And it was kind of like a throwaway line. It was like, I have pointy ears, I'm a mutant.
Throwaway lines, yeah.
Okay, that's it. We're not going to mention it ever again. Let's move on. Oh, okay. That's fine, I guess. Whatever.
Because there's also this storyline. So there's her, or there's him as a mutant, but there's also the whole Val storyline of Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character, where she's been the one kind of consistent through Phase 4 idea, and it's building up towards Thunderbolts. And I just don't understand the value of doing this. Like, I see where they're going. I full on, I got it.
Right.
But I just don't know, does She-Hulk's throwaway line of the Sokovia Accords being gone help? Does anyone care about the US within the MCU? Does it really mean anything when aliens come? Like the whole, like we
Aliens
have
and
the whole
gods
Falcon
and
and
wizards and everything.
Winter Soldier idea of flag stompers and all their weird things of how people were gone for 5 years and so country boundaries have changed. Did those, like, half of the CIA or FBI might have been gone. Does Val even have any? It's a whole different thing. Also, there's Wakanda has a different. It's a whole thing where Wakanda's more powerful than the U.S. just straight up.
Right.
So it's a different ideal in comparison. And so I don't know what Val's character's long-term value truly is, because they announced, or I don't know if it's official, but there's like a whole Thunderbolts roster, and I really could not care less. But that's me personally. Maybe other people are all in on Thunderbolts.
I mean, there's definitely people I've seen online that are very excited for this. I'm not very excited. I'm like interested. I'm like, that's intriguing, you know, because I like some of the characters that are going to be on this roster.
So
that's about it, though. Like, I'm not really like excited for it. I wouldn't say.
Yeah, it's more the characters on the roster. You have Yelena, which she's a good character by herself, but I don't need her in Thunderbolts. She could actually have more of a role in the Avengers.
Be her. Yeah.
You could, and then they have her father, Red Guardian, because I really like Black Widow had nothing. Honestly, I really couldn't get you much for Black Widow. But Black Widow also introduced a terrible Taskmaster, who's also part of Thunderbolts. And then there's Ant-Man 2, where the most forgettable villain in the MCU is now part of Thunderbolts because Ghost, like, no one remembers that Ghost even exists.
Yeah.
I just don't know about these Thunderbolts. Like, I know people love Bucky and the Winter Soldier, but his storyline might have been more intriguing to stay connected to Wakanda than the Thunderbolts.
Yeah, it might have been actually. Oh well, yeah.
But
I don't know.
that's what Val's big thing is. And I think her oddest point in this entire film is that she said she hacked the beats to hear Martin Freeman's conversation. So Shuri, who is super technologically advanced, is impressed when Riri talks about using like 2056-bit encryption. Her beads are hacked by the CIA.
Yeah.
I don't think her beads are hackable by the CIA, or if they are, it's probably going to take years. It's not going to be in the like few days that this film takes place.
Yeah, I want to say to that point, to boil it down even more, I think the whole scenes with her felt so out of place in this film.
They're jarring.
It's jarring. Like I felt like I was watching a different movie. It's like someone turned off the TV and it went to commercial break, and I'm watching, or like, you know, somebody changed the channel and now I'm watching like Days of Our Lives. I'm like, what is this weird show I'm watching right now? In this fake house and fake area, like what is happening? And I don't know. And I like Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I think she's great, but I don't really care for her as Val at all. Like I don't get her character. It feels out of place in the MCU. The blue streak in her hair is weird. I don't get it. Just don't get her character. I don't get it. Cause like
and
Martin
then she's
Freeman,
Martin Freeman's ex-wife for no reason.
Yeah, my
too.
God, whatever. I was like, all right, I'm done with this storyline. Now, I don't know. I really hope she's working for somebody else above her, because I don't want her to be the big bad. And it feels like they're setting her up to be the next big bad before Kang, you know, kills everybody in the phase 6 or whatever phase that's going to be. It's going to happen. So hopefully she's working for Doctor Doom or somebody else. I hope. Because I'm not really a big fan of, what's her name? Carter, who became the power broker.
Oh,
like,
Emily Vandekamp. Yeah, Agent 13. Yeah.
Like, that was a weird turn. Like, I really liked her as an agent, just being an agent. You know, I didn't need her to be an evil agent. Like, really?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm assuming they're probably both working maybe for the same person, possibly, and they don't know it. I don't know. Either way, I could have done without it in the film, because the film, I think, really, as we said earlier, could have been boiled
There's
down
so much going on.
Been really good.
This isn't the film to introduce Val as more than just an end credits person.
Right. And I don't think that was Ryan Coogler's fault. I think Kevin Feige and them and all came in. We're like, hey, you know what? This is the last film in Phase 4, so we gotta do this and this and this. He's like, oh my God, like I'm already trying to do all this other stuff.
I'm telling
people.
this other story just about Wakanda.
Yeah, I had this great performance from Angela Bassett. Like, no, forget about that. Let's add this in. Let's have this scene with Val telling us about her marriage. Good. I don't need that. So, yeah, I think the negatives detracted from some of the positives, unfortunately. But I think the positives are why I enjoyed this film so much. Which is why when the film did end, I really was like, yeah, I kind of enjoyed my 2.5 hours watching this film, despite its flaws. And a lot of that was the directing and some of the acting and the performances throughout this. So, yeah, it will be interesting to see where the tensions lie between the two nations that we have now that have vibranium versus the world. I don't know how exciting that'll be for me as an MCU viewer, but
the battle over vibranium seems like a really real world crisis type of thing, of like limited resources and pillaging countries that has just been happening throughout human history. And it's like a whole, that's why we have those UN sequences. That's why we have something that ties more into the real world versus totally fictional stuff. And to your point, it kind of feels like the Senate negotiations in Star Wars, the Trade Federation. No one honestly cares. Like, Kang the Conqueror showing up in Ant-Man is exciting.
Sure. That's much different than talking about
the UN talking about countries fighting over vibranium doesn't have that same excitement.
Right. No, it doesn't, unfortunately. A fun scene, you know, for sure. You know, it was a fun little scene with Angela Bassett commanding the UN, and then you had a little sneak attack, you know, in the
sneak attack that they out-sneaked was really great.
Yeah, it's fun. But that's it. Like, the rest of it was boring. I don't really care about what other countries think about vibranium and whatever. Anyway.
And then vibranium, it's also on that level where it's like Beskar, where it just the only thing that defeats vibranium is vibranium, and it's vibranium versus vibranium, and it's like, and then we know that Thanos's helicopter blade can smash vibranium, whatever it's made out of. I'm not sure, but I know Cap's shield took a beating from it, whatever it's made out of.
It got smashed. Yeah, I took a big beating, whatever that is. Maybe from his homeworld on Titan, possibly. Maybe some kind of mineral on that planet. Maybe we should go find that planet and, mine for it. I don't know. So yeah, trying to think of other big plot points that would have happened in this that were kind of interesting.
I mean, I thought it was interesting that they chose an undisclosed mystery illness to kill T'Challa. I like, he could have died in any way they possibly could have written. I like having it more grounded in what actually happened, that it's, no matter how smart your scientists are, there's some things that man can't control.
Or
your
superheroes. Yes, even superheroes can't stop this. What it reminded me of was there's a really famous episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. This is a spoiler alert for those of you who have not watched Buffy, if you had planned to watch the show. I won't go too spoilery with it, but there's a main character that dies. And this main character dies of natural causes. And of course, a lot of the people on the show are, magic based, and they can usually heal people. Well, you can't in this instance because it was a natural death. It wasn't a death caused by magic or demons or whatever. So it was a big moment for the main character, Buffy. She's like, one time she really can't help this person. That's why I kind of felt like in the beginning, opening shots, because that whole episode was shot without a soundtrack. It was all silent. It was just the characters acting and talking and stuff. And it kind of felt like that way in the beginning. It was a cold open. And it was a brutal cold open, right? After, seeing Chadwick Boseman's face over the Marvel logo, and then you go into the full panic mode of trying to save his life. It's like, oh my God. And realizing that it was a real disease, and it felt very respectful, I think, too, of what Chadwick Boseman went through in real life without having to name it. They didn't have to say the word cancer. It's an illness, something we don't know what it is and how to cure it in time, unfortunately. So,
also,
yeah,
the
well
line
done.
about he suffered in silence, and Martin
that.
Freeman saying that he's surprised people didn't know, and just Chadwick Boseman went through a lot, and he didn't broadcast it widely.
Yeah, and once again, his presence was felt. A lack of presence, I should say, was felt in this film for sure. And that goes now to the end of the film, which is where Shuri finally, burns the burial clothes in the fire on the beach, and just kind of lets go. And that's another moment that just hits. Getting emotional just thinking about, like, wow, that was powerful to witness in the theater. Just listening to the wind and seeing his pictures on the screen, like, that was just a great person, a great actor, and a great character. So yeah, really well done. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the ending of that film a lot. Just wish the last battle was a little more climactic to have made that scene even better, but yeah, I felt like that was the right way to end the film.
And then we also get M'Baku kind of nominating himself to be king of Wakanda without being Black Panther.
Yep, that's really interesting. Like, does the Black Panther have to be king? Does the king have to be Black Panther? That question, right? Can they be two separate entities? I would absolutely love for him to be king, because I think that's fantastic. Such a great character, sitting there eating his radish or whatever the heck he was munching on, because he is a vegetarian. So that was a fun little Easter egg to the first film. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed his character. Kind of wish he had a little bit more to do in this film, just because I
feel like he was more sidelined.
Yeah, he was more sidelined and almost kind of like jokey. I'm like, all right, that was fun. I like him in that role too, but like, to give him more stuff to do. So hopefully he does, in whatever next film or franchise they go, that he does get to become maybe a king, but who knows? Because there is a mid-credit scene which might change things.
Yeah, so the mid-credit scene, it's worth noting there's no end credit scene. Just in case you are
shout out,
stick around the whole time.
I don't remember who it was on Twitter, but someone mentioned on Twitter, they said there's a mid-credit scene but no after-credit scene, so I knew to leave after the mid-credit scene. I'm like, thank you. Thank you so
Yes.
much for telling me. So I just left. I just dipped. Everyone else was seated. So, yes, there's a mid-credit scene, and it's a big one. One I was
Yeah,
not seeing. I didn't see coming, to be honest.
No, yeah. So after Shuri does burn the funeral clothes, she's on the beach and she's in Haiti, and so Lupita Nyong'o comes up and she wants to introduce her to somebody, her nephew.
As soon as I saw the kid, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh no, this is happening. I'm like, oh yeah, secret kid. Here we go. Yeah, that was crazy. Well done
Yeah.
on the casting too. The kid looks and acts just like a young Chadwick Boseman. It was really great, cute kid, and yeah, I don't know. It kind of hit in the feels, and you can tell. Like, it was really nice to have. The movie ends with her, being sad, but then you get that moment where she almost sees hope. Because this is the future. It's like the future of her family, and she's smiling and laughing with him, and it was it was a really nice beat, and it'll be interesting to see where his character goes with the films as well. Does he have a claim to the throne? Does he have a claim to the suit, et cetera, right?
A claim to the throat and the suit, and does he want it? Does Lupita
And does he
Nyong'o
want it, right?
that for him?
Right, because she purposely said, she raised him out here, on purpose, away from all that, So, who will he be when he grows up? Will he not have then that sense of I don't know what the right word is, duty to take over the throne, or arrogance, or what have you?
Like, as I'm watching, I'm just thinking of all the different shows that are about kingship, and like House of the Dragon,
really?
or Succession,
Yep.
or Yellowstone, or whatever. It's like it's the hot thing, and this fits in that exactly. But it
does.
It can be a completely different perspective. They can choose how they want to develop it.
Yes. Yeah, they could choose that he might not want to be any one of those things.
Yeah.
So I really will. It's going to be nice to see how he fits into the mold going forward, and how the whole Young Avengers come about, because the Young Avengers are they're the replacements, right, of the old monarchy. So our old monarchy, the Avengers, are no longer going to really be around, except for a few that are still alive and dealing with stuff. They're going to be the heads. Are they going to be, do they want to be Avengers? Do they want to fight? Do they want to take up the mantle? Some have already, some haven't. So we'll see what he does. I'm intrigued by that concept myself.
They're
a whole new world.
accelerating Young Avengers surprisingly well.
Yes.
That's the one thing that they're really building, but it's not in your face. I
Yeah,
feel like a
that's true.
casual viewer isn't like, oh, Young Avengers.
Oh, that's so and so, right? Is that him? Yeah, they're like, oh, that's cute. All right, that's so and so. That's a background character in this scene or whatever. Yeah. So their ages are all over the place, though. So it'll be interesting to see how they're going to reconcile that in any way, if they do or not. I don't know.
And
Maybe they
that
don't.
kind of, so that's Wakanda Forever. Definitely worth your time. It's a fitting close to Black Panther
Yes.
by T'Challa and Chadwick Boseman, and I just feel like they had to juggle too much over the course of the film.
Yep, it was a lot. It was a lot to handle, and I think, if anything, I know I said I didn't come into the film with expectations, but I think my only expectation was that Ryan Coogler simply had too much on his plate to deal with, what is almost an impossible task. And I think he did a great job with this impossible task. Like, it could have been so much worse with any other director. So in that respect, hats off to him. I know that he is thinking about possibly taking some time off, which makes sense. He made 2 great films in the MCU. So I think we're all in debt to him for building, for world building, I think. Both Wakanda and that new undersea kingdom. So shout out to him and the whole team behind this project. Really, really well done.
And so now this does wrap up Phase 4. We do have Guardians Holiday Special to round out the year, but that's not really intertwined into any kind of phases. So
that we know of. Who knows?
But
they said the same thing about WandaVision and everything else, right? Yeah.
The next big thing is going to be Ant-Man or Ant-Man 3 and the Quantumania. That's coming out next February. So we just have November to February, and Kang is in the trailer for that. Phase 5 looks like it's going to start off with a bang. But until then, Phase 4 leaves us with just, I don't know, it leaves us with a lot of hodgepodge of stuff. I feel like there's no really big thing of Phase 4, and I think part of that is every phase is kind of, up to this point, has been ended by an Avengers film. There's a tentpole Avengers film, and there isn't one in Phase 4, but more than that, we don't even know where the Avengers stand right now, because the two biggest leaders, Tony and Cap, are gone. Yep. The next subset of leaders, Thor is off on various adventures of doing stuff, and Hulk is also doing his own various adventures.
What is
he
doing? Yeah.
And so I don't know who the leader of the Avengers would be. Like, I feel like Black Panther, if Chadwick Boseman doesn't pass away, is a very
he would have been
obvious choice. And I don't know what the alternative is right now. Like, I just don't know what the future of the Avengers are. Like, the Young Avengers have a whole bright future, but what about the Avengers?
Yes, we don't know. I will say this. I do think that Phase 4 was going to be messy no matter what they did, right? Because they really firmly ended the story. It wasn't like they were like, here's some loose ends. It was like, no, boom, this is done. And I think Phase 4 was grief. It was all these different characters that we have dealing with their grief in some way or another. Maybe not every single story, but I would say the majority of the stories were them handling grief in some way. Whether that was compelling for you or not, I think some did better than others telling that story, that aspect of it. But I think that's kind of what it was. So I don't think there would have been a great way to have ended that with an Avengers style movie, I guess. I don't know.
No, I definitely agree that it's more, now what?
Now what? I know. Yeah, for sure. We don't know. So hopefully Quantumania sets up something, some kind of event with Kang that's, everyone
even if you leave Kang as a big adversary, though, I don't know who's going to fight him.
Yeah, who's left? I don't know.
That's what I'm more worried about. Like, I understand Kang is a big, gigantic threat that I don't think people realize just how compelling it is to have a character that wins in every single possible multiverse. That's how awesome he is. It doesn't matter what universe it is. He comes out on top. That is utter dominance.
Yeah, it's a lot. They're throwing a lot at us as well. So trying to make it all make sense. I don't know. It will be interesting to see how they do this next phase. I think this next phase might actually be slightly messier than this phase. I think this phase at least had grief to hold on to as a through line. And I don't think they have one for this next phase. I think that this next phase is probably just going to be continuing to introduce new characters and bringing them together for some reason. We just don't know what that reason is yet. Maybe it is Kang. That's it. That's all we're going to see for the next phase. And then phase 6 will be all the big battles with Kang, etc., and all the other.
It's also interesting because it's like we're ending stories too. Like Guardians 3 is to end a story.
That's true. Yep.
We're ending stories that we have and creating new stories. Because we still have the Fantastic Four coming at some point. Yep. We're still doing a whole supernatural thing with Blade and whatever Jon Snow's character is going to end up as, and there's the possible Moon Knight connection and all those different elements to it. Who knows? That's a whole world building, and then mutants are slowly the slowest crawl introduction of all time.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they do need to piece all together.
And they might not. Maybe that's the new. I think we had mentioned this prior.
Yeah.
That maybe they don't have to anymore. Maybe
that's what Kang can do.
Are that? Yeah, he can separate them out into their own pocket universes.
We have to face this Kang here. We have to face this Kang over here.
Yeah, we talked about that, and I like that.
Jonathan Majors to be amazing across multiple different things.
I mean, we watched him in that trailer for Creed 3 right beforehand. I'm like, oh my god, that guy is more ripped than anybody I've ever seen. Yeah, he's gonna kill everybody.
Yeah,
no choice. And he's charismatic as hell. Oh boy, yeah, he's gonna be a great one. So, looking forward to that at least. We have Kang, so we have a good villain, I think, coming up. So that's a plus.
Yeah,
but we'll see. Quantumania coming up in February.
Marvel never slows down. That's the one takeaway.
Yeah. All right.
It's crazy how that's all I got. Yeah, you can change out actors for them not wanting to do it anymore, for them having untimely, tragic passings, and Marvel's just going to keep coming up with something.
Yeah, they're a steamroller.
Don't get in the way.
Better for worse. Yep, pretty much.
So be sure to reach out to us at Secondary Heroes. What did you think of Black Panther Wakanda Forever? What did you think of Phase 4? What do you think is coming in Phase 5? And there's a lot Marvel to talk about. So reach out to us. Talk to us about it, because we love to talk Marvel, as you can probably tell by listening to any of our episodes. And then to everyone listening, we hope you enjoyed, and we'll talk to you next time.
Frog out.